And former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop, and Sky News host Jo Hildebrand join me now. Bronwyn, your reaction?
One of disgust, but not surprise. I think Albanese has shown himself to be a coward. He's seeking the cover of Starmer and of Macron to cover his weakness in fulfilling what he set out to do as a university student. Remember his visit to go and see Mr Corbyn when Mr Corbyn was the head of the Labour Party in the UK, when anti-Semitism flourished in the Labour Party. Those people haven't gone away, they're still around. And remember that it was during the mandate of the British over Palestine that when Jews were fleeing Hitler, that the British stopped them going into the Palestinian mandate. And remember also that under the French, Vichy France, of course of which Mitterrand was a part, that they transported tens of thousands of Jews into the gas ovens in Germany and Poland. This is the history. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was a pan-Arabist and then solely concentrating on the development of a Palestinian state. He went to Hitler and asked him, please come and give the final solution and kill all the Jews in the Palestinian mandate. This is a long, long process. And to stand there and give that pathetic speech today is a man of cowardice, a man who is not prepared to stand up to minority statements in this country, where there is a demand constantly in the Muslim Times, for instance, that there be sanctions against Israel. This is because they want votes from those people, and it is despicable but understandable, because a leopard does not change his spots. And that's what Albanese is. And as for Penny Wong, of course, China is also in favour of the Palestinian state. Are they also taking their instructions from the Communist Chinese, the Communist Party of China? What happened in the 2-hour speech between Mr Albanese and President Xi that were not covered by any media? What happened in that speech? What agreements were made? We don't know. But here we see it has been a long progression. There's nothing accidental about the way the propaganda has gone with regard to Palestine and the murder of all those people. It has been staged all the way along, and it's been assisted by people who should be of integrity and simply are not.
I mean, there is no doubt suffering in Gaza, but this move does not help the Palestinians. To help the Palestinians, you need to remove Hamas.
It's difficult to see. I mean, there's obviously huge amounts of catch-22s and non sequiturs in this proposal. The hope, obviously, is that you remove Hamas by basically isolating them and saying to the population of Gaza, as well as to the West Bank, if you want to be recognised, you have to get rid of Hamas. You cannot vote for Hamas. And it's basically saying, look, we'll give you democracy, but you've got to vote the right way. You might argue that that's a bit of a problematic approach in the first place. But
that's impossible.
That's right. It is very difficult. There is no question. But clearly they've said, look, this is the Palestinian Authority, which doesn't control Gaza, as you know, is the lesser of two evils. It's corrupt, but it is not as extreme as Hamas. And if we say that we recognise them, and that if people go in the other direction, that will deprive them of statehood, that is maybe one way of trying to provide more currency. I think it's also a response to Benjamin Netanyahu's recent push to actually have a full military occupation of Gaza City, if not all of Gaza. And it is a very deliberate response. And in fact, you know, the UK government, for example, has said that they would impose sanctions they'll provide recognition unless Israel does a ceasefire, unless Israel opens up the gate. So they're using it as
Israel to do. Israel
no, that's right. This is what the UK is saying. But
the entire time, it's Hamas.
This is what they're saying, and then there's questions of whether the aid is going in and stuff like that. But I think
Israel's aid is going in. It's not being distributed by the United Nations.
So all that stuff is rubbish.
But this is the thinking behind what the government
There is no thinking behind it. They were determined to do it, and they've wrapped it up in a load of rubbish, which nobody can believe.
This wasn't
it has been planned. It has been going on since before World War I.
I think Netanyahu's decision to
Netanyahu was forced into that decision by the West turning against it. The cowardly behaviour of Macron, who was the first to come out.
I didn't like
and then
Macron stuff
Starmer,
either,
with that party as it was. And as for the Canadian Prime Minister...
His own military advisors are telling him that a full occupation is insanity.
What about his statement that he made in that statement, Netanyahu? We will not commit national suicide to get a good op-ed in 2 minutes.
Exactly.
We won't do it.
Exactly, very strong.